Yeah. Yeah, now I'm sharing back again the section on Marx and Engels. I was saying to you last time, it's really to do with the idea how they looked at literature. These people, of course, as you know, they are really philosophers, or they were, I should say. The philosophers, thinkers, ideologues, if you like, and you may say, well, what's this to do with us as literature people? Well, the idea to say here is the way they looked at, according to the definition and the implication and the meaning of world literature. For many people, they thought that this is connected, or this is related to them, if you like, because they were looking at literature as a common property, or like something owned by all society, by all people in many ways. And really, this is the idea here to say the last sentence, which I have, I think, finished, where you say the intellectual creations of single nations, or of including literature, say, are not nation specific any longer, but the common property of the world. Which means, a novel written by an Englishman is not owned by English people only. This is the idea. It's not owned by English people only. It becomes the property of everybody, because we people are entitled to learn and to study from any other source. This is the idea in this sense here. And I think, to some extent, that's why world literature, we say that we should study world literature. Again, this is the job of comparative literature, that we borrow ideas, we give ideas, to other nations, and we take from other nations. I think that's natural. In the same way, like, they talk about exchange and interchange and so on. So really the idea here, for example, again here, Georgi Lukács, and I think he was a great critic. I think he was, if you like, he talked about that, as a Marxist critic. Lukács really was a Hungarian critic. He was a very strong Marxist critic in a way. He talked about the idea, or if you like, the whole thing of literature as something to do with the capitalist in contrast to the socialist and so on. The whole question of if you like, idea about that capitalism is not the really, if you like, the answer. Now, there are so many people who talked about this in a lot of ways. And really here, at the end of the day, I highlighted the last paragraph, and I think which is an important thing here, to talk about the market and the looking at the market, and everything is marketed, everything is sold and, bought and sold and so on. So with the idea here to say, for example, the need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. Maybe today, when you think about it, for example, today, yeah, maybe this is, we live today, for example, in the global world, really. When you buy, for example, today, you buy products, you go to any supermarket today, everywhere in the world, you find most products everywhere from, you buy onions, American onions, you can buy chili nuts, or you can buy American nuts, or American watermelon, or You can buy grapes from Peru or Chile or Argentina or Brazil or South Africa or anywhere. So, this is the idea about, the whole question of borrowing. So the same thing, not just borrowing, but consuming, really. Consuming. And this is the question about the question here. We say the bourgeoisie or the bourgeois. Well, it's nothing to do really here in a way. In a way, it's not really bourgeois in this sense here about that. It is something that we need, people need, and they use it. So the whole idea of exploitation and exploited and, using and abusing and all this, I think to some extent, this is far-fetched. This is maybe, far-fetched. It's not really important thing here. Notice the bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world market, given a cosmopolitan character to production and consumption in every country. To the great jargon of reactionists, it has drawn from under the feet of industry the national ground on which it stood. All old established national industries have been destroyed and are daily being destroyed. Today you find any any mobile today, all the mobiles that you have in your hands, for example, they are all made in China. Whether it's iPhone or any machine today, you say why? Because companies, they think that if they go to China and they start their factories there, they save money. Anyway, so the idea of this, of national, what is national and what is not national, again, I think this is interesting to talk about, studying other literatures. Why not? Why not? Why not? So this is the idea here. They are dislodged by new industries whose introduction become life and death question for all the civilized nations. But industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material drawn from the remotest zones. Industries whose products are consumed not only at home, but in every quarter of the globe. In place of satisfaction, the products of distant lands and if you like, in place of the old wants satisfied by the production of the country, we find new wants requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and claims, and so on. This is the idea about trade. Like, as I say, when you buy grapes or tomatoes when you buy tomatoes, for example, Italian tomatoes or Omani tomatoes or Jordanian tomatoes or Turkish tomatoes or South African tomatoes or whatever, this is the idea. This is the idea. We think we feel, people. This is it. This is the question of, globalization. So, in the same thing in literature. So why not in literature? So the idea here, you can't really say this is a text only for Omanis. You can't say that. This is only a text for Syrians, or this is only a novel for the British, or this is a novel for the French, or this is a novel for the Italians, So that's why here we say world literature, whether we like it or not, it becomes the property of all the world, any text, any novel, everywhere, Chinese novel or Vietnamese novel or Japanese or German or whatever. This is the idea, like when you're eating Italian tomatoes or chili grapes or nuts. So it's the same thing. Well, why not? So the idea here, we say, in place of the old local and national seclusion of self-sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction, universal interdependence of nations. We borrow the same thing. as in material and also in intellectual productions. The intellectual creations of individual nations become common property. National one-sidedness and narrow-mindedness become more and more impossible. You can't say, I can't borrow, I can't bring onions from whatever. You know, you go now to a supermarket today, to Carrefour or to any place, you find onions from everywhere in the world. Spanish onions, Egyptian onions, Indian onions, Omani onions, right? American onions, and I don't know. You see what I mean? So, you know, you have all these choices there. So why not American novels and English novels and Japanese novels? And you understand? So this is the idea. You say national thing, it becomes really impossible. You know, sometimes, you know, you say, why this is very expensive? You say, well, because it's brought from Italy. Or, you know, tomatoes, for example, you know, you pay 3 real for a kilo. I will never die. You know, do that. I will buy Omani, or, you know, for example, which is better and maybe cheaper and maybe better, and so on. You see what the idea? So it's up to you what to buy and what to consume and so on. But you can't say, I can't now, you know, I can't have my things on my own. You can't, because now you have everything. So this idea of single-mindedness and narrow-mindedness and all this becomes absolutely difficult. You can't say, I can't, I'm not going to read a novel from Russia, or to read a novel from Spain, or to read a novel from America, or, you see what I mean? So this idea here, we say, it becomes something really universal, whether you like it or not. You like it or not. You go everywhere, you find everything in front of you, you know, from all over the world, because that's life. Okay, so this is the idea, really, we say here about the nature of world literature. The nature of world literature, it is something that we need, something that we use from all over the place. And I think that's normal and that's natural. And that's the idea here. We say, you know, it becomes world literature. That's very easy. Okay, so I think this is logical and this is sensible, as I'm saying here to you about, you know, this, you know, the idea of individual nations. You can't say, as I say, this is only an Omani Arab novel, right? An Omani Arab novel can't be understood except by Omani people. No, you know, the idea that this can be used by and read and by understood and by applied and so on by other cultures. Fine, really, this is the idea, I think. And really, to be honest, David Damrosch, our friend here, the last section here in this introduction, and in this week, I'm going to finish this week. David Damrosch, the man, as I told you, who came to us last year, like really last year, he was here in our conference. David Damrosch really has, if you like, or he is, I should say, he's still really a very famous American professor at Harvard University, and is a very really strong writer and critic and really professor at comparative literature. As you can see, you know, he is a professor there at Harvard, and he wrote a lot about this idea of comparative and world literature. And he gave us in this introduction, in this book, maybe really this is in his own book, as you can see, What is World Literature? I think this is one section in this introduction here. Although himself, again, he wrote, as you can see here, the title, David Damrosch, was What is World Literature? Princeton University Press, published 2003. Now, in Damrosch really if you like, spoke a lot about all these things. And he gave us maybe a wide range of ideas about how to look at world literature. I'm not so keen about, you studying all this carefully about what Damrosch is saying. That's sometimes you say this is not really very much in need for us at the moment. Just we want to know, what he means by world literature. Now, as you can see here, there's a little introduction here about him here in this. As I said, this is not mine. It's taken, as I told you, it's copied from, as you can see here, the title pages, as you can see, from the original text where I copied this for you. Notice here, Damrosch, really, I think what's interesting about him, he wrote this book called The Buried Book, The Loss and Recovery of the Great Epic of Gilgamesh. And I think this really book is quite interesting about going back to Gilgamesh in that. And he wrote a lot of stuff, really, in a way. As you can see, his work has been translated into many languages, as you can see here. And that's really not, as I said, not very much interesting to us at the moment. But to him, he's giving us some ideas about how to think of world literature, if you like. In a way, here, for example, he talks about how Goethe really created the phrase. And I think we talked about that before. We mentioned what Goethe believed and said about world literature. In his book, or in this section, he talks about that himself when he's saying that Goethe coins the phrase of world literature. And how we people, for example, or other critics after him really employed and used the title. In a way, to some extent here, I highlighted some of the ideas I think is quite interesting to see what he says here. For example, I said the dramatic acceleration of globalization. Again, here we go back to the idea here, what Damrosch is talking about, the globalization, as I was just saying about trade, business, and the stuff that we find today everywhere in our markets. So the idea, what he wants to say, that the idea of world literature can usefully continue to mean a subset of the plenum of literature. Again, he said, world literature to me, again, to encompass all literary works that circulate beyond their culture of origin, either in translation or in their original language. In a way, well, I'm not saying, again, here I come back to the idea. Are we saying that all literature, which is all the production, which is like, again, to go back to the idea of buying or not buying the American or the Chilean or the Chinese garlic or onions? I gave you the example of that. Or instead of buying the Italian tomato, I buy for example, the Omani tomato or something. Well, it's up to you, really. Not everything you think is valuable. And this is, again, the same thing. Do we really think everything written by others is world literature? I'm asking this question here. Are we saying here, notice here, world literature to mean, are we saying all literary works that circulate beyond their culture of origin, either in translation or in their original language? Are we saying everything here can be seen as world literature? I don't know. I don't think so. Well, to me, I don't think so. Really, that's the idea I want to say. Like what I'm saying, it's up to you to buy that novel or not. Maybe not everything is tasty for you. You don't like it? Yeah, fine. So here we go back to the idea of value, the idea of value, the idea of really what is absolutely valuable and great, and you like it. And really, to me, to be honest, and I even spoke to Dr. Damrosh, Professor Damrosh, when he was here. I said, come on. I mean, when you say about translation and everything which is translated and gaining translation, I told him, I said, look, for example, look at the Arab translation or Arabic translation of Shakespeare. You know, there are many horrible Arabic translations of Shakespeare. You know, are we saying that Shakespeare has gained in Arabic translation? Maybe never, because most of the Arabic translations of Shakespeare that I have seen is absolutely disastrous, is terrible. So I'm sure Shakespeare has lost a lot in Arabic translation because we have bad translators. That's it. So not everything which is translated is here, of course, is the measurement for, or if you like, the criteria for saying, we say, wow, this is world literature, and this is not. So I'm saying here really, or what he's saying, notice he said, world literature could include any work that has ever reached beyond its home base. Again, I say I doubt it, and I think that's not really true, because in this case we say everything which is written by everybody else then is as world literature. I say no, and I think many critics and many people agree to this, because not everything which is written by all society, by all writers, is world literature. It cannot be. Again, I think here we see, notice, a viable concept when delimited in this way. World literature still consists of a huge corpus of works. In this case, again, you still say, is this really possible? Yeah, I mean, you can take something from outside, something, maybe not all novels. I'm not sure everything written in India is great. Everything written in Germany is great. Everything is translated in Russia is great. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure, and I don't think so. And the idea here to say, you know, there are good writers and there are bad writers. And to say world literature to everything, I think this is wrong, absolutely wrong. Because to me to say world, the word world should mean something to do with value, really to mean something with value, with real meaning, with real impact, with real, you know, something important and something nice to be seen and to be taken and to be understood and so on. Do you understand what I'm saying, boys and girls, or yeah?
Yeah.
Do you agree
Yes,
with me?
doctor.
Huh?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. I want somebody to disagree with me. I don't know who. It's okay, no problem. But I'm saying that really the idea I'm saying here, that it is not possible to say that all texts from all other cultures should be seen and looked at in the same caliber, the same thing. Well, it's impossible, really. It's not really possible at all. So that's why really the idea here we come to this. So again, for example, he goes on about this I think a central argument of this book will be that, properly understood, world literature is not at all fated to disintegrate into the conflicting multiplicity of separate national traditions. And he started to, I think, in a way, to talk about this idea about what's national and what is not national again, to discuss this again, nor on the other hand need to be swallowed up in the white noise that, for example, here by Janet Abu Lahoud, or has said, like a global bubble. You know, my claim is that world literature is not an infinite, and I think this is good, and I agree with him, is not an infinite, is not ungraspable canon of works, but rather a mode of circulation and of reading, a mode that is applicable to individual works as to bodies of material available for reading, established classics, and new discoveries alike. Yeah. When he's saying, I believe, that's what Damrosch is saying, of course. He said, to me, world literature is not something fixed, infinite, final, and something you can't understand, or a canon which is absolutely fixed. And, you know, sometimes you say, I can't understand that. How can this be a world text when I can't understand it? But we say, yeah, a world text is something that which is maybe he said, as he said, a mode of circulation, the way you accept it, the way you take it, the way you say, wow, the way you say, this is a great text, you know, that it goes on to be bought and sold and read and reread and so on, and going from one culture to another culture and so on. And people say, yeah, I mean, recently I started to you know, I've heard recently in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, or even the last 10 years, people say al-khimyai, 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 and al-khimyai. I said, what's this? Who's this al-khimyai? You know, and it's a rubbish book to me. I thought it's rubbish. I don't know. Anybody read Al-Khimyai by, what's his name? Coelho or something? Huh?
It's by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, do you agree with me, or do you?
I agree with you, Doctor, because I wrote a term paper for this.
Yeah.
For this novel.
Yeah.
And it is the same with me. I heard all people said alchemist, alchemia. So I decided to write a term paper for this novel. But when I read it, I was shocked. Like, why they said it is like a great novel, and all one is like read it before, and so there was many questions around my head.
Very good, Abir. Yeah. I mean, I've heard this since I was in Saudi. In fact, you know, I left Saudi in 2014, and I said, Coelho al-Khimyai, Coelho al-Khimyai. I said, what's this? What's this? You know, I'm not saying, you know, maybe this is my personal feeling, you know, and sometimes it's really funny that how people, you know, think of a text, and it's all, I thought, totally commercial thing. It's made, it's done just for money. I don't know. I mean, this is really amazing. I feel, what is the value of this? I don't know. I mean, this is really the idea. Maybe people will disagree with me. I don't know, but that's what I'm saying here. I'm saying that sometimes you know, when you look at something, you have to find really, value in it, real value to do with language, with structure, with the beauty of whatever the ideas and the concepts and, images, blah, 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 blah. There are good stuff you find in something. So Damrosch is saying, well, literature is not something, world literature is not something really fixed, something infinite, something absolutely, final and universal and wow, So that's why he's saying it is something rather should be the way we read things. And that's what he said, mode of circulation. And I think I will come back to this. We will come back to this here, of course, the idea. And that's why we say, there is no one canon. When I say I don't like Al-Kimyai or Al-Khimyai or whatever by Coelho, because this is the way I see it, and this is my reading, and there are no single reading, for texts, because we have readings. And I think that's what Damrosch is saying. Come on, we say, if you like Shakespeare, people say, I don't like Shakespeare. It's possible that people are entitled to their own opinions. So there's no single set of canon. There is no single set canon. There is not. So that's why here we say, yeah, we have in the same way, like, the way you read Shakespeare, or the way you read, for example, a novel by an Omani novelist, or a novel by a Syrian novelist, or a novel by a German novelist. The way you read it, for example, it's not the same like I read it. Or when I read this, for example, I wanted to teach, for example, the choice that I gave you, for example, the text that I chose for you, I disagreed with my colleagues, and they say, well, they teach something else because they found that there are stuff there, I didn't find it. And, this is the idea that there's no single reading, and no single canon. There are ways of readings, and this is the idea, okay? So Damrosch, that's what his idea to say. He's saying the variability of a work of world literature. You see here the variables. How many times, the idea that this text can be, what's this? Yeah. So the idea is really quite interesting to I think to get this what Damrosch is saying about world literature. Not necessarily world literature, these are the canons, because canons are not always fixed, and this is the way you should read a text, because there are ways of reading text, and there are readings, not just one reading. And this is the idea about when he's saying the variability of a work of world literature is one of its constitutive feature. One of its, he said, the greatest strength when the work is well presented and well read. Yeah, I think that's true. That's true. And this is the idea, really, when we say, and I believe that, and I think this is absolutely true. So when we believe that, then yeah, we say this text is valuable and is good and is blah, 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 and you give reasons, and you enjoy reading it, and you think this is a great thing in so many ways, and you find people reacting in the same way or similar way, and so on. So, this is what he's saying about the, circulation. A work enters into world literature by a double process. That's what he's saying here. Damrosch, again, is giving us more ideas. And I think he's rephrasing this. Notice, first, by being read as literature. Second, by circulating out into a broader world. You know, again, to go back to the idea of circulation. Yeah, when you read something as literature, yeah, of course. And when you're saying circulating, again, to go through the idea of, through translation, to broader world, you know, to go beyond the borders again. So a given work can enter into world literature and then fall out of it again. Yeah, of course. Sometimes you like something, and maybe after 50 years, this text maybe is no longer maybe fashionable, and people maybe today, that's why many of my colleagues said, "Oh, doctor, why are you teaching this novel? It's an old novel, and it's, you know, it's Russian or it's French or whatever novel. Oh, why don't you teach modern stuff?" You know, yeah, people can say that. It's up to them. And sometimes, yeah, people think that this is possible, that the text can fall out of world literature. Maybe, but not all the time, and maybe not to all people, because there are people who say classical texts are the world literature texts, whereas other texts, they're not classical in the sense that really well established. You know, then we say they're not world literature in this sense. And I will give you examples later on why and how, or how we think that this is a world text and this is not a world text. So in a way, again, as I said, this may work for me, it may not work for you. As I said, to go back to my example of Coelho, people say, well, what a great novel. Wow, what a great novel. Well, I didn't see. I thought, what a rubbish novel. you know, I didn't react in the same way. So really, I thought it's you know, it's full of coincidences and an amazing, like, you know, in a way, like whodunit story, like a thriller, like maybe, you know, I thought really, to be honest, I thought it's quite a commercial, in a way, text. Anyway, so the idea here, very few works secure a quick and permanent place in, if you like, as we call world masterpieces. Again, people say, why do you say masterpieces? As if to say, even the word masterpieces, even the word masterpiece is questionable and is in doubt. Again, I don't know. I mean, this is again to ask and to say this, that there are no masterpieces. I think this is unfair. I think, you know, to be honest, I believe in my own traditional way, maybe I'm a traditional man in this sense, I think there are masterpieces. There are masterpieces. Definitely. Definitely. People say, for example, they say to me, you know, why do we need Shakespeare? Yeah. Yeah. People say that. Yeah. It's up to them. But to me, I think if you have not read Shakespeare, or to me, and I think to many people, there are texts which are a must. Really, they must be a must, you know, literature that you should read and you should understand. Like, why do you call this classics? Why it's called classics? Why classics? Why? Because the word classics means the real good thing. Maybe there are people who react in a radical way, in a strange way. Yeah. But the general consensus, the general agreement is that, I think, till today, for me, there are masterpieces. There are definitely. There are masterpieces, definitely. I mean, some of the people I met, many places say, no, no, it's the way you think. Yeah, but we don't believe so. So the idea really, Damrosh is saying, yeah, there are masterpieces which will remain as masterpieces. And to me, the texts that I have given to you, the texts that I have chosen for you in this course, to me, I think they are all masterpieces, and they must be read. In any course of world literature, they must be, at least, if not read completely, they must be sort of looked at somehow in some way. Okay, so really, this is the idea I want to say, and Damrosh is saying here.
Doctor,
Yeah.
I just want to ask you about, do we consider also that like the novel which they win on Booker Prize, like sometimes they like consider some novels are from like they win in the Booker Prize, and when you go and read some of them, they don't deserve for me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you like, yeah, I mean, not all novels which are nominated for the Booker Prize or for these, all these prizes, not necessarily, definitely. It's, these things really, they are commercial thing. They say, because they want to sell novels, because they want to make money. Really, if you like. Yeah, Zainab is asking me, what are the masterpieces that you consider masterpieces? Yeah, well, to me, as I said, really all the texts that I have chosen for you, but maybe now, if somebody, Sarah saying, people now tending to read شجرة البرتقال الرائعة. What's this, Sarah? Sarah? You can't speak?
Doctor, it's a Brazilian novel which has been translated to many languages. One of them is the Arabic language, and people are tending to read it very much those days. But it's purely a romantic novel which has nothing more. I mean, I didn't find it interesting at all.
I have never heard of this. Thank you for introducing this to me. I have no idea. شجرة البرتقال الرائعة. Yeah, this is Brazilian, you say? Was it translated
Yes.
from Brazilian or from English?
I think from English, because it was translated to English firstly.
Yeah, well, I have never heard of that. But as I'm saying, really, these new, if you like, these trendy, because, they are in a way like trendings and, like fashion, if you like. And it's mainly really trying to sell, not all Booker prizes or any prize at all. It doesn't mean it's a world literature. Absolutely no. But it's only for promotion and for promotion and for selling books and commercial, again, to go back to commercial stuff. Really, in a way, that's the idea. But really, to go back to Zainab, yeah, Zainab, again, masterpieces, I'm saying really, to look at, to answer Zainab quickly from the English, for example, a masterpiece from the English literature and maybe American literature. I can mention to you in English, for example, Christopher Marlowe and, Shakespeare, all Shakespeare's writings, to me, I think they were masterpieces. Dr. Johnson and John Milton and John Dryden and, Alexander Pope and Charles Dickens, and these great names in English literature, they are masterpieces. They are, these big names. I'm talking here because I'm talking about English British literature, because my field is English literature, really, to be honest with you. And to go back to any other literature, yeah, you can say that. If you want to look at any other text, you can say that. In Russian literature, for example, I chose Dostoevsky. I mean, what student to graduate from English literature who does not know or who has not heard of Dostoevsky wouldn't be ashamed? Wouldn't be ashamed that somebody graduating from English read nothing by Dostoevsky, or read nothing by Shakespeare, or read nothing by Dickens? It would be terrible. It would be, for me as Zainab, terrible. Somebody who has read nothing of these masterpieces, it will be disaster to me. Okay? So really, this is the idea I'm saying. Maybe, as I said, you maybe disagree with me, it's up to you. I'm not, trying to force anybody's opinions about things. But yeah, I mean, this is the idea here about what Damrosch is trying to tell us about what are these texts. Now, Damrosch, to be brief, here he gave us three main criteria, as you can see, three main features of what is a world text. Notice, world literature is an elliptical refraction of national literatures. Again, world literature is writing that gains in translation. Again, world literature is not a set canon of texts, but a mode of reading, a form of detached engagement with worlds beyond our own place and time. And I think the rest of this, he explains that. Again, we say elliptical refraction. This is, of course, he's using here phrases, Damrosch is playing with the language, really. He wants to say, what's this elliptical? Again, to say what is nationalistic and what is not nationalistic, the question here about how people look at your own literature as your own text. Now, I think here, if you read this, I think I will say or tell you what he really means, what he means by this elliptical, because there is no way that you can, again, read it. It's always in a slippery way, because the word elliptical, it's not really, it's not clear. It's always hazy, kind of slippery ground about how you think. And again, we say refraction, it's like reflection or something. Now, notice here we say even the word national. We can say that works continue to bear the marks of their national origin given by their circle, again, after they circulate into world literature. And yet, these traces are increasingly diffused to become ever more refracted as a work, notice here, as a work travels further from home. Again, he's connecting the same thing, really. He's not saying something new here, that a national text, how a national text can go beyond. This refraction, moreover, is double. Again, works become world literature by being received into a space of foreign culture. Again, when you say here, the receiving culture can use the foreign material in all sorts of ways, and so on. So world literature is thus always as much about host culture's values and needs as it is about a work's source of culture. Hence, it's a double refraction. Well, again, I think he's using the same. He's playing with language here. Like taking and giving, As I said about my example about tomato or onions or whatever that you feel that you want to give and take, give and take, give and take. Something local and international, or national and international. You know, anything which is international, you know, you get something about it. So the text, he said, world literature is always, he said, it has its own value. Yeah. And it gives values to others. Yeah, of course. And that text will receive values from others. Yes. And will go back to you as your own text. Yes. I mean, that's the interaction. Really, that's the whole idea of interaction. And this is, I think, the beauty of literature, the interaction. That's why, for example, you know, like here, we are giving you, you know, exactly like, you know, we are here, for example, as, you know, non-Omani teachers teaching you here, we are giving you something of our own mentality, our own cultural background, our own understanding of things, our own appreciations of things. So in a way, we are giving something extra, and we are not denying culture. We are not, you know, stripping you of your culture and something. So we are sort of planting and transplanting and maybe retransplanting things here and there. So the idea of giving and taking, and I think this is what he means here. Notice, always as much about the host culture's values and needs as it is about a work source culture. Hence, it's a double refraction. You know, this is the idea, give and take, one that can be described through the figure of the eclipse. And this is what he said, elliptical. I think he's trying to show off in his language here, our friend Damrosh. I think he's not saying anything new here. Whether it's pursued individually or collaboratively, work on world literature should be acknowledged as different in kind from work within a national tradition. Yeah, maybe. So the idea really, he's still going and coming to say about this influence, taking and not taking, and influenced. Again, completely aware of the work's life at home, the specialist is not always in the best position to assess the dramatically different terms on which it may engage with a distant culture. We're not saying that specialists are the only people who can understand, who can judge. People are people, and readers are different types of readers, and the people or different readers can have their own reflections, and we should respect their own reflections. As I said to you, for example, or I say to you, well, you may disagree with me. Yeah, fine. You may disagree with me. Yeah, no problem. Well, the way I said to you, Coelho is this and Coelho is that, maybe some of you say, doctor, come on, why are you saying this? Yeah, of course. You know, you are welcome to say this. So I'm not saying I am the specialist and you should take from me everything as absolutely sacred. There's no sacred thing here. You know, this is really the idea about what Damrosh is saying, that people are entitled to appreciate things. Looking at such new context, the generalists will find that much of the specialist's information about the work's origin is no longer relevant, and not, but about should be, you know, he goes on about this question of being specialist or not specialist. Because really, as I said, literature readers are different. Readers are different. Reactions to texts are different. And they are all, if you like, in some way or another, they are, you know, maybe acceptable in some way or another. Now, again, you know, saying, when I distinguish specialists from generalists, I mean to characterize approaches as much as individuals. Just as work can function either at home or abroad, so too any given person can be both a specialist in some areas and a generalist in another. I think he's repeating the same thing. Okay, so really this is the idea about to go back to summarize the idea of, he's saying elliptical refraction, you know, the way how this national text can take and give and borrow and assume and become and so on into another culture. And I think this is the same thing. I don't think he added anything new here. So this elliptical refraction, this elliptical, strange, slippery notion about what is a world text and what is not. And again, the second point he said, well, which is again to gain in translation. World literature is only which gains in translation, means a text written in Arabic, when it's translated to English, it becomes more powerful, you know, in English. Then for him, that's what he means. For him, this is world text. If it gains, means it's become more powerful and people will accept it. And this is what I said to you about my idea. When I read Shakespeare in Arabic, by the most commercial translations in Arabic, I found it horrible. But maybe for people who have not read Shakespeare in English, they would think that this is great Shakespeare. Maybe. But you see, the idea here to say, did Shakespeare really gain? And this is what I said to Damrosh myself. Did Shakespeare really gain? I don't think so. Maybe to some extent, yeah, could be. But that man who translated Shakespeare into Arabic, he had in mind money. He had in mind commercial reason. And I think here he wanted to say that world literature is writing that gains in translation, means any text which becomes more powerful. Like what I say to you. Like what I say to you, Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky is Russian. Like what I say, Homer is Greek. Like what I say, all my texts, French. I don't know French. I don't know German. I don't know Russian. But I think, you know, the translation that I read about Dostoevsky, for example, or about Camus, or about these men I have read, or I'm going to teach you here in this course, I think it's great translation. And I think, wow, you know, in this sense, they say, you know, saying, for example, Dostoevsky, to me, I think he gained a lot, became very powerful through translation. Not only because how come people said, are studying, for example, Dostoevsky everywhere in the world? Because of the translation. So, yeah, he did gain in translation. And I think this is the idea. Notice, a text is read as literature if we dwell on the beauties of its language. This is it. I said the beauty, the powerful language, the structure, the etc., everything to talk about it. The language, the form, the theme, and so on. And don't take it as primarily factual in intent. Don't look at it as facts, because this is literature. Again, we say the same text can cease to work as literature if a reader turns to it primarily to extract information from it. Don't read a novel for information. Don't read a novel for information, only information. Read a novel as a novel. Yes, there is information. There are a lot of information, yes. But don't look at it only as a source of information. If you don't get this information, you say, oh, this is a rubbish novel. You know? So that's his idea, Damrosh's idea, gaining in translation, because you will see the translation in language, in structure, in form, in context, etc., etc. And that's really the idea here. If you like, when you say, if you are giving information, notice, informational texts neither gain nor lose in a good translation. You see? That's why, for example, Arabic is difficult to translate. When you read an Arabic poem, if I read for you, for example, you say مكر مفر مقبل مدبر معا كجلمود صخر حطه السيل من علي. Now, no translation will give the same beauty. No translation. No translation. no translation will give the same power for Mru al-Qais's line here in this poem, right? So if you are looking for meanings, if we have a great poet, yeah, I mean, I can show you, I will show you examples later on. Some of my students in this course, you know, ex-students, 1 year or maybe now nearly 2 years back, here she's an Omani student, she's an amazing student. She translated, you know, English poem to Arabic poem. And I swear, I really think, and I will show you that next time, I thought that her translation into Arabic, she translated it to Arabic poetry. Her poetry, I thought, is better than the original. Really. And she's a young Omani girl here in Sultan Qaboos University when I taught them that course 2 years ago. And yeah, I mean, because she's, at the end of the day, I discovered she's a poet. She writes poetry. Because, you know, that's the beauty of thing. I say did, because she translated one by Emily Bronte, and Emily Bronte was a great writer. And I think that Omani girl, when she translated that thing into Arabic, I thought, this is my feeling, I don't know, I will ask you, I will show you this, I will show you her translation later. And if you agree with me or not, I think her translation is better than the original. So here I say, yeah, you know, this is what we mean by gaining in translation. The words, the images, the language, the structure, the form, blah, blah, blah. You know, everything is done in a beautiful way. You understand? And really here, there are more ideas I want to conclude here. I don't know, I mean, maybe I don't have time. Please read all this because it's the same thing, really the same thing, no addition. They look and focus at the highlighted stuff. And in my last term videos, I think I explained these things roughly, but today maybe I don't have time. Maybe next time, if you want me to go back to this, I will. If you really want me to go back to this, I will, no problem. Okay? Any question, girls? I think I will stop recording here. Oh, Sarah said, oh yeah, did I read this story? Did I, Sarah? Hello? She's asking me a question, yeah.
Yes, Dr. I'm here.
Did I mention this to you before?
No.